Hey, what's up, y'all? Yeah, we got 2 weeks and 2 days before the AP exam. Hope you guys are studying. Hope you guys have all your topics memorized, all 15 topics that we cover. And that you're studying key terms, figuring out how you're going to flip quickly to your reference sheets. I enjoyed reading your study pledges, so stick to them. Stick to them. We're going to do a kind of a whirlwind lecture today. I'm going to post the slideshow so you have access to it. But it's going to be a lot of information. I'm going to cover it pretty quickly on revolutions that come following the spread of Enlightenment ideas. So we're going to dive in. I'm going to share my screen. Go to the slideshow from the beginning. All right, so we're going to quickly talk about these four revolutions: the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, and Latin American revolutions. And I want you guys to think about how revolutionary were these revolutions? That's kind of our overarching question. To what extent did these revolutions bring massive change to the people who lived in these regions, and how truly revolutionary were they? So think about that for a second. What's your guess? Was the American Revolution truly revolutionary? Was the French? Was the Haitian? Was the Latin American? What would be your guess on all four of these? See if you can match them to my suggestion on each of these. Starting with the American Revolution. Do you think the American Revolution was truly a revolution? Well, I say no. The American Revolution was more about independence. It was revolutionary in the adoption of Enlightenment ideas and the elimination of monarchy. So in those ways, it very much was revolutionary. The American colonies, when they get independence, do not establish a new monarchy. They establish a representative government. That's pretty revolutionary. What makes it not revolutionary? They kept slavery around. Yeah, they did not abolish slavery, even though they were singing the praises of John Locke and natural rights and popular sovereignty and everyone should be free, except for our enslaved Africans who are helping our economy. That's what the four founding fathers kind of said. There were a few abolitionists in the Constitutional Convention, but they were outvoted by everyone who thought that slavery should continue, even though the United States adopted these Enlightenment ideas in their constitution that everyone was created equal. So it's a partial revolution. It's a revolution of independence. It's a revolution of getting rid of monarchy and establishing a government, representative government for white people. And by and large, the people who were wealthy in the American Revolution before the American Revolution were the people who were wealthy after the American Revolution. So it was a revolution of the elite who wanted to pay less taxes to the British government. How about the French Revolution? Was it a revolution? Truly revolutionary? This one I say kinda, more than the American Revolution, in terms of the fact that it abolished the third estate. The French Revolution abolished slavery. The French Revolution eliminated the monarchy, and not just like we're going to get independence from the monarchy, but we're going to kill our kings and queens. They nationalized the church. So there were a lot of things that the French Revolution did that were truly revolutionary. So this is pretty revolutionary. I would say kind of to yes for the French Revolution being revolutionary, but it doesn't last that long. Napoleon comes back, takes over, conquers, restores the monarchy, restores the church. So France kind of has its revolution and then it goes back to its old ways. We're going to look in more detail at these. What do you think about the Haitian Revolution? Yes. we all can agree the Haitian Revolution was truly revolutionary. Enslaved Africans rebelling against their masters, defeating multiple armies that France sent to quell the rebellion, defeating French armies at the time of the initial revolution, at the outbreak, and then again after Napoleon sends more troops to try to take back Haiti. Yeah, there's no revolution in the world quite as revolutionary as the Haitian Revolution, where enslaved Africans get their independence, establish their own government, establish a democracy. True revolution. Latin American revolutions are probably the least revolutionary. They are not that revolutionary. These are independence movement. These are wars of independence, much more than wars of political and social revolution. Essentially, it's a break between the colonies in Spain, and the elite class in Latin America wanted independence. They didn't want to be paying taxes and sharing their wealth with the Spanish, and they wanted to maintain control over all of the people below them in the caste system. So the Creoles wanted independence, and they wanted to maintain the very hierarchical, unfree, undemocratic system that was established under Spanish rule. So that's my kind of quick assessment of how revolutionaries each of these revolutions was. We're going to look at them a little more closely right now to just refresh your memory about each of these revolutions. We're not going to talk a lot about the French Revolution, about the American Revolution, except to say that both the American Revolution and the French Revolution have a similar origin, which is the 7 Years' War of 1756 to 1763. This is a war between Great Britain and France, but you can see that both had some allies from this map. The most important impact of the 7 Years' War, there's a couple of big impacts. The first big impact is that Britain defeats France and gets a lot of their colonies in Southeast Asia, their trade posts in the Indian Ocean. And the other thing that happens is that both countries go into incredible debt. So France is in debt, Britain is in debt, and they're going to look to get that money back from, they don't want to tax themselves. The lords and the wealthy people don't want to give up their money for these wars and for the protection that they get from the army. They want to tax the lower class. So in France, they tax the third estate. In Britain, they tax the American colonies. They say, hey, we fought this war to protect you from the French, so you should pay for it. And the taxes, in part, lead to the revolution in both regions. So in the American Revolution, the taxes, you guys know the story of the stamp tax and the sugar tax, and the tea tax, and the Boston Tea Party are all kind of pushing the American colonies towards revolution and independence of Britain. The same thing happens in France. They tax the third estate, and the third estate, after probably 1,000 years of subjugation and oppression, finally uses their numbers to revolt. Big impacts for France. France loses its colonies in the 7 Years' War in Canada and India to the British. France supports the American Revolution. So without French support, the American colonies probably don't defeat Britain. And then the French soldiers who fought in the American Revolution return with those ideas of liberty, ending monarchy, back to France, and France is in debt. So France in 1789 is ruled by an absolute monarch. King Louis XVI is not questioned. He has incredible power, but they also have incredible debt. The population has grown enormously. And so there's population pressure in France. There's too many people and not enough food. People are hungry. People are kind of upset. And this creates a risky moment for the monarchy. And then when they pass that debt on to the third estate, the commoners, who pay 100% of the taxes, the revolution gets started. So those Enlightenment ideas that had been kind of swirling and churning and brewing for more than 100 years by the time the revolution comes around. John Locke is in the mid 1600s, and the revolution 1789. So those ideas have been swimming around for a while in France, and then they finally erupt in 1789. Quick reminder of the status quo. This kind of goes with yesterday's lecture. The status quo in France is the estates general, the three estates, the clergy. The church owns a lot of land, has a lot of power in France. The nobles have a lot of land and a lot of power. And then the third estate, which is everybody else, and they have a huge population, not much political power, and they pay almost 100% of the taxes for the state. I'm not going to go through the details here. These are things you can look back in your notes, but the Third Estate forms the National Assembly. This is the representative body of the Third Estate. This is the commoners. The National Assembly, if you see that in a document, that represents the Third Estate. What do they want? They want representation. They want popular sovereignty. The National Assembly authors the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen, where they lay out their demands for this revolution. What do they want? They want a social contract. They want a government that is represented by them. They want to choose their own government. They want a government that protects the rights of people. They want to end the abuses of the monarchy. They want to end the abuses of the church. They want to end the abuses of the nobles who can do what they want to the peasants. They want freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of press. They want free courts. They want fair trials. All these Enlightenment ideas are the things that the Third Estate wants, and they declare those intentions in the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. The immediate result of the French Revolution is the monarchy is suspended. It's put on pause. They create a constitution. They create universal male suffrage, so every man can vote. They abolish slavery in France and in some of the colonies. And they confiscate and nationalize all of the Catholic Church's land. That all that wealth and all that land becomes part of the state. And the state now is not controlled by the monarch, but controlled by the people. From 1789 to 1792, things are chaotic in France. The kind of peak of the French Revolution is 1792, when King Louis the 16th and Marie Antoinette are executed. This is truly revolutionary. France has been ruled by monarchs for basically its entire existence, whether it was part of the Roman Empire or after the fall of Rome, when it's ruled by Charlemagne and other feudal lords. It's always been a monarchy, and now the monarchy is gone. Their heads are cut off. So this is pretty revolutionary. And what follows the end of the reign of the execution of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette is something known as the Reign of Terror. It's led by a man named Robespierre. And this is kind of when the revolution becomes too extreme. It is a revolution against people who don't want to take the revolution too far, the moderates, the ones who say, hey, we got to calm down a little bit. And then they're rounded up and executed with this massively efficient Enlightenment created execution device known as the guillotine. The Reign of Terror, understandably, makes people think that the revolution has gone too far. So this is when Napoleon shows up. He's been fighting on behalf of the Revolutionary Army. He is not a noble elite person. He went through the ranks of the French army and becomes a general in the French army during the revolution. And he says, okay, I got to clean up this mess. He comes back to Paris. He cleans up. He brings his army in to establish order, creates rule of law. And he basically takes charge of the revolution. He becomes the monarch, essentially, the new emperor of France, in order to stop the Reign of Terror. But he does pass he does keep some of the Enlightenment ideas of equal rights for men, that they can vote, protection of personal property, the idea of John Locke, rule of law. He establishes the Napoleonic Code, but he brings in censorship, no more freedom of the press. He also restores the monarchy, restores power to the Catholic Church. So this is a major shift back to kind of the status quo, back to a monarch who has absolute power, but a monarch who's also guided by the law code, the Napoleonic Code, that puts a little bit of a check and a balance on the monarch's power. Was the revolutionary for everybody? Absolutely not. Women like Mary Wollstonecraft and Olympia de Gouges were reading the same documents. They were reading the Enlightenment philosophers. They were writing about those same ideas. And they're pretty disappointed with the French Revolution. It didn't include women. Women didn't get equal rights. Women didn't get the right to vote. Women didn't get the right to move into the professional world of doctors, lawyers, business owners. They weren't allowed equal education. So both of these women are pretty frustrated with the French Revolution. So there are serious limits to the revolution, how far it extends. Good for the third estate. If you're a man, not so good if you're a woman, then things kind of stay the same. And Olympia de Gouges and Mary Wollstonecraft were good friends. They wrote a lot about it. And Olympia de Gouges was actually executed during the Reign of Terror. But these revolutionary ideas of equal rights, of suffrage, of having representation in the government, popular sovereignty, women are going to hold on to these ideas all the way up until they get suffrage after World War I. And we see another example of this in the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848, where women demand the right to vote, equal rights, property rights. Up until that point, women who married men were considered in many ways the property of men. Their property belonged to their husbands. Women did not have the right in many countries and governments to own significant amounts of wealth on their own. It always had to be kind of shared with either a husband or a father or a brother. So women catching on to these Enlightenment ideas want equal rights. We see that in Mary Wollstonecraft, Olympia de Gouges, and during the French Revolution, and then in the United States in 1848 in the Seneca Falls Convention. Okay, how about the Haitian Revolution? You guys know a lot about this. The details we're not going to go into. Was it revolutionary? Absolutely. The fact that enslaved Africans in Haiti overthrew the government in Saint-Domingue, France's most valuable colony. Saint-Domingue produced more wealth for France than any of their colonies around the world. It produced sugar, a lot of sugar. It was one of the most productive sugar colonies in the Americas. 2/3 of France's colonial income came from Saint-Domingue. Also produced coffee. As many as 1 million people in France depended on colonial trade, including members of the National Assembly who owned land in the colonies. So Saint-Domingue was a prize not to be lost. We talked about earlier in the year that there are different ethnic groups, or let's say demographics: the rich plant owners, the Grand Blancs, the Petit Blancs. So these are the white laborers who don't own many slaves or much land. The mixed gens de couleur, the mixed African, French class that own land. Some are wealthy, but they don't have equal rights. They don't have rights. They're not allowed to hold jobs or hold positions in government the way the Petit Blancs and the Grand Blancs. And then, of course, the enslaved Africans who outnumber white French 10-1. We talked about the brutality of slavery and the brutality of sugar plantations many times this year. Um, it was a death sentence for most who were assigned to it. And because of that, they're constantly importing new enslaved Africans into these sugar colonies because the death rate is so high. So they're always getting new enslaved humans from Africa. And that gives them some opportunity because so many people were uh, born in Africa. They share a language. They've also experienced war in Africa. Many of them were captured soldiers from the slave wars that are happening in Africa to capture slaves to sell them to European slave traders. So there's a lot of proven fighters among the enslaved Africans in Haiti. And they get these rumors of the French Revolution. So the French Revolution is definitely percolating through Haiti in 1789, 1790. And in 1791, the enslaved Africans make their move. The revolt starts on August 22nd, and plantations are starting to be burned, and it just kind of catches fire across the colony. The Haitian fighters often shared a language, an African language. Many had been soldiers back in Africa. France tried to stop it. France tried to protect its wealthy colony. They tried to give citizenship to the gens de couleur, and then they twice sent troops to quell the rebellion, and twice those troops were stopped by the incredible military fighters of the Haitian Revolution. The impact of the Haitian Revolution, however, is less powerful than it could have been because Haiti becomes isolated. France doesn't want to give it up. Spain wants to take Haiti as its own. Britain doesn't want a slave revolt to spread anywhere. The United States doesn't want slave revolts to spread anywhere either. So basically, the whole world teams up against Haiti to isolate it, to impoverish it, to not trade, to not enter into kind of any kind of negotiation with the leaders of the Haitian Revolution. Those leaders are Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines. You can go back and pause and look at these slides in more detail if you so choose. Napoleon tries to fight back and take back Haiti, and that doesn't work either. He's repelled by Jean-Jacques Dessalines. And in 1804, Haiti finally gets independence. They lose a fifth of their population fighting for that independence. They're forced to pay $17 billion in today's currency as a result for reparations back to France, which is super messed up. But it is a legacy of being the only truly successful slave revolt that we have in world history, like truly lasting slave revolt with independence. I'll let you pause and you can read this on your own, the legacy of the Haitian Revolution, and we'll shift to Latin American revolutions. Were they revolutionary? Not so much. The Spanish and the Portuguese controlled almost all of Latin America. They have very oppressive labor systems, hacienda and comienda, mita, slavery, and it's a classic example of mercantilism where the Spanish are exploiting as much as they can from the American colonies to make Spain rich at the expense of those colonies. There's no real benefit for the colonies to be part of the Spanish Empire. They're there to produce wealth, to produce raw materials that Spain enjoys and Spain gets the benefit of. They also forced Catholicism on everybody who lived in Latin America. We've studied a lot about that. And they introduced the casta system, which is the Spanish form of racial hierarchy. The Peninsulares are at the top. Those are the born in Spain, quote unquote, white Spanish, born in Spain, control most of the land. They are the most powerful. The Creoles are also considered themselves white. They're born in the Americas. So they're like the sons and grandsons of the Spanish, daughters and granddaughters of the Spanish. They want the independence. So the Spanish-American revolutions are revolutions of the Creoles against the Peninsulares. It's basically a fight between these two groups at the top. The mestizos are mixed of all different kinds of categories. The Costa paintings make up 32, maybe more, different races, different mixed percentages of mestizos. Then there's the Indios, which are the Native Americans, and the enslaved Africans. So the caste system was very rigid, very oppressive, and it keeps the Creoles at the top. You can see how much of Spain gets its independence. How much of the Americas get their independence from Spain after 1830. It's led by Simon Bolivar. He is the kind of George Washington of the Spanish-American revolutions. And his most famous letter that you're going to read in your exit ticket is the Jamaica letter, which justifies independence from Spain. So have a look at that. It says the Creoles should be elite from the oppressive. The Creoles are treated like slaves by the Spanish. He doesn't seem to note the irony that he also was controlling a lot of enslaved people and the Indians. But at the end, that's what the Creoles wanted. They want independence for themselves, economic independence, and they don't want anything to do with giving mestizos, Indios, enslaved Africans more rights. They want to keep them oppressed and subservient and working for them. So here's our stamp for the Latin American revolutions. They were framed by the language of the Enlightenment, like popular sovereignty and natural rights. But ultimately, Creole revolutionary leadership was principally concerned with the preservation of their power over the native and African majority. Therefore, they failed to establish natural rights for all Latin American people. So it's a very limited revolution. What do all these revolutions lead to? Something called nationalism. What is nationalism? You guys, I think, know this already, but it's pride in your country, pride in your language, your history, your culture, your religion, and it's tied into a country instead of a kingdom. So after these Enlightenment revolutions, people exchange their kingdom for a country. They used to worship kings and queens. Now people worship their country. Loyalty to the homeland, the formation of national flags is a very big deal in this moment of nationalism. Anthems are symbols of nationalism. Volunteer armies where you sign up to protect your country, all products of nationalism. Some causes of nationalism are shared common language. So a great way to identify countries is to identify what languages they speak. And in kingdoms, people and empires, people speak a lot of different languages. Empires, that's what makes it an empire, is that it controls very diverse people. Inside of empires and kingdoms, when those people want independence, they want independence with people who share their language and share their religion. So that is a common cause for nationalism. I share a language with someone, I share a religion with someone, I share a history with someone. I want to have a government and share that government with them, not with outsiders. The printing press helps spawn nationalism as people read nationalist propaganda in their own language. The decline of Latin and the rise of vernacular languages leads to nationalism. So it used to be people were kind of unified by Latin, the language of the church, but that kind of falls apart. People embrace and start reading and writing more in their own vernacular language. And the Enlightenment idea is to get rid of the king and get rid of the monarchy and say, you know, everyone should have the right to choose their own government. So people are going to choose the government of people who look like them, talk like them, and share the same beliefs as them. So that's it for today. That was a whirlwind of a lecture. You may want to watch it a couple times. I'll post the slideshow as well. But get through it. And your exit ticket in your writing practice is to think about how revolutionary were these revolutions. All right. See you tomorrow.